All right, the age-old debate on whether to buy many properties with less cash flow or to buy fewer properties and potentially have more cash flow. So if you were trying to get a few properties, and let's just for argument's sake, let's say 3 properties, and you wanted to have those all paid off and then just entirely cash flow, and the only things you might have to pay, well, actually you would probably have to pay is property taxes, unless for some reason you was your primary residence and you were a veteran in a certain state, but even then it would no longer be your primary residence unless you're renting it out at like a house hacking type of thing, like rent by the room. But take those aside and let's just go with the actual investment property. So you had 3 investment properties and they were all paid off. You're likely just paying property taxes, and if you want to have insurance on those, you have insurance too. All right, and then you have maintenance that you have to go capex. Those never go away. Those costs should always be built in, but otherwise it's cash flowing as much as possible because you don't have a mortgage on it. All right, that's the theory. Versus buying several properties, maybe 10 plus, and although they're not paid off, they have mortgages on them and they're cash flowing at least somewhat. So I think really what it comes down to is your return on equity, and that's something I've learned in I don't want to say recently, but like probably 3 or 4 years into the journey. I'm always thinking about return on investment, right? So it's just like, what am I getting as an ROI, or what am I getting as my cash on cash returns? But then, when you think about return on equity, should also be something to be considered as well, because what's happening is if you have your money out there, and let's say you have 10 properties, right? And your equity in each of those properties is going to be pretty low because you're likely going to be doing loans on them. It's 20% down on each, let's just say, for easy concept, right? Versus, let's say, on the properties now, if they're fully paid off, right, your return on equity is going to be much lower on those than it's going to be on the ones that you have a mortgage on, just by common math, or I should say simple math. And so if there's considerations outside of that, even it could be just is if your risk tolerance is that you don't want to have mortgages on properties because you want to feel like you have it all paid off. Should there be a massive downturn, it doesn't matter because you don't owe X, Y, and Z banks. You just have your properties that are just going to be paying at least property taxes on them, but you don't have to worry about a lender. So there's all types of different factors you can take into consideration. But I do think that one of the key takeaways is that you must look at your return on equity and what you want that to be. So if you want that to be a relatively high number, you have to look at how you're going to do that. If you're not comfortable with it being so low, then maybe having all of your properties, or each one of your properties, if it's only a few, paid off, maybe that's not the best strategy. Maybe you do need to tap into some equity, do a cash out refinance, and then use that to buy more properties and see that overall you're getting a better return on your equity if you're spreading out over multiple houses versus just keeping your 3 or 4 properties, whatever they might be, all paid off. Neither one is a right or wrong answer. It's not that if you do have 3 or 4 properties completely paid off and they're all cash flowing based off of just no mortgage on the plate, that's not a bad or a wrong strategy. It's just you have to take that consideration to know if that is your strategy or not. I think it'd be kind of I don't want to say misleading, but it would be bad if you just got into that and you paid off all your properties because everyone's just been saying, if you've listening to a certain group of people say pay off your properties as quickly as you can, and you do it, and then you find out, wait, like that's actually not what I wanted to do. Sure, it could be a little bit simple by just simply doing some cash out refinances on some of those properties, but maybe not. Maybe those aren't possible for some reason. I don't know. But so it's just good to know the strategy going into something rather than on the back end saying, "Well, I had no idea that that's not what I wanted," and then you waste all that time as well, because it takes a while to pay down those properties unless you somehow come into a large sum of money and you can pay them all off at once. But you could be very far down the road by the time those are all paid off, and then you're looking at it saying, I am now doing the math and seeing that this is not what I want. How can I change it? You can change it at that point moving forward, but what about the 10 years, 20 years that it took to get there that you could have been doing something else with your money rather than just simply paying off those properties? Again, if you really want to do that strategy, there's not necessarily anything wrong with it. And if it's what you want to do because of your risk tolerance and what your financial goals are, then that could make perfect sense, and I advise you to do it. But if that's not what you want, you should explore other options to maybe diversify, maybe not so much in asset classes, although you can, but to just get more properties, and then you have less cash flow in each, altogether. But at least your return on equity, you're basically maximizing what you have as your resources. So just something to consider. I hope this was helpful. I would look to do future videos on different loan products and what we've done with our properties. I know we did a few that are rehabs. I'll do more of those as well, just to go over the wins and losses, the complexities, the benefits of doing each type of renovation, on whether it's just a simple bathroom remodel or whether it's like, hey, we're just redoing the entire deck in the whole house, whatever it might be. So I'll be happy to share those. But subscribe, and hopefully you can find value in this, and we can keep learning all together. Everyone's sharing videos together, just putting it out there. Hopefully the education will come from people's experiences and not just a simple course that people create.